People think that CMMS codes are boring. Just a work order type. Just an asset status. Maybe a PM frequency. I've been implementing CMMS systems for over 10 years, and I'm here to tell you. Some of the biggest reporting problems, workflow problems, and data quality problems I see start with the code. Because codes are a lot like Lego. Individually, they don't look important. But when you put enough of them together, eventually they become the foundation of everything you are trying to build. And just like Lego, if you start pulling pieces out and replacing them with whatever happens to be lying around, don't be surprised when things stop fitting together. So today we're talking about CMMS codes, what they are, how many you need, and why your reports should trust the code, not the description. Let's get into it. So why should you care about any of this? Because codes quietly affect almost everything in your CMMS. Nobody gets an award because they cleaned up your code table. They will, however, get a bunch of complaints if they don't. And the funny thing is that most people won't realize codes are the problem. They'll complain about the reports that they don't match. They'll complain that the dashboards are confusing. They'll complain that users keep picking the wrong option. They'll complain that workflows don't behave the way they expect. But a lot of the time, the problem started with the code structure years earlier. And that's why I wanted to dedicate an entire episode to something people most never think about. Because codes aren't sexy, they're foundational. And when the foundation is shaky, everything built on top of it becomes harder to trust. So let's start with what a code actually is, because I see this all the time. Someone looks at a dropdown and they see a description, but behind that description is actually a code. And here's something a lot of people don't realize. In many CMMS systems, a code isn't just a label. It's a bundle of settings. A work order type might determine whether work is considered preventative maintenance. A priority code might determine your response time. A status code might determine whether technicians can still edit a work order. A code may even trigger workflows, such as an automation, an integration. So when somebody says it's just a code, sometimes I get a little bit nervous, because it's usually not just a code. It's a collection of decisions hiding behind a dropdown. This little piece doesn't look very important by itself, but imagine 50,000 work orders sitting on top of it. That's what a code really is. It's not just something users select. It's a foundation piece for your system. And because of that, one of the most dangerous things you can do is change what a code means. Now notice I didn't say description. Descriptions can change. Descriptions should change. If a description becomes clearer, easier to understand, or matches the language your organization uses today, that's usually a good thing. For example, maybe you have a code called ELE. Years ago, that description was simply electrical. But today you want it to say electrical systems. Perfectly reasonable. The code stayed the same. The meaning stayed the same. You just improved what users see. But let's say somebody decides that ELE shouldn't mean electrical anymore. It now means elevators. The problem is that for the last 10 years, it meant electrical. Now you've got one code trying to tell two different stories. And when one code tells two stories, neither story is very trustworthy. The work order didn't change. The technician didn't change. The asset certainly didn't change. You changed the definition after the fact. So now every report, dashboard, KPI, and historical trend that uses that code is trying to mix two different meanings together. And that's a dangerous place to be when you're making decisions from reports. This model works because every piece has a purpose. Imagine if I pull this piece out and tell you that it always belongs somewhere else. That's basically what happens when you change the meaning of a code. The system may still run, the reports may still work, but the history becomes harder to trust. And depending on what's attached to that code, things may stop working altogether. Remember our defaults episode, this video here? We talked about how one little setting can affect thousands of records. Codes are exactly the same. Small decisions, massive impact. So here's the rule. If you need a new meaning, create a new code. If you need a better description, update the description. Those two things are not the same. And keeping that distinction clear can save you years of reporting headaches down the road. So now that we've talked about what codes are, let's talk about how many you actually need. And this is where a lot of CMMS systems get into trouble because administrators love dropdowns. Seriously, if there's a question that can be asked, somebody somewhere is dreaming up a dropdown. And on paper, that sounds great. More choices, more detail, more information. But that's not usually what happens. What usually happens is somebody opens up a work order and sees 30 options, or 40, or 60, and they don't carefully evaluate every possibility. They pick the first thing that looks close enough and moves on with their day. Because people follow the path of least resistance, and honestly, they should. The goal isn't to make users work harder. The goal is to make it easy to enter good data. Imagine if I handed you this pile and asked you to find one specific piece. You'd probably find it eventually, but it's gonna take longer. And you're more than likely to grab the wrong one. That's exactly what happens when dropdowns get out of control. So before you create a code, ask yourself one simple question. What decision will this help us make later? If the answer is nothing, you probably don't need that code. Not every piece of information deserves its own dropdown. And here's where I'm going to pick on a mistake I see all the time. A dropdown with one option. One single, lonely option. If there's one valid answer, why are we asking the question? Remember our defaults episode I mentioned earlier? We talked about defaults being one of the easiest ways to improve data quality. This is one of those places. If every work order created through a certain workflow is medium priority, default it. If every request coming through the self-help portal is request, default it. If you only have one facility in the facility dropdown, default it. I promise you the users already know which facility they are in. And if your CMMS allows it, hide the field completely. Don't make people answer questions when there's only one correct answer. That's not data collection, that's paperwork, and it's frustrating. Sometimes it's even worse. A user sees a field and assumes they need to interact with it. They click it, nothing happens. They click it again, still nothing. Is this broken? Oh, maybe it's only read only. Maybe there's only one option available. But now you've got somebody spending time trying to change a value they were never supposed to change in the first place. And that's frustrating to them. They think they're doing something wrong, when really the system is asking them to look at information they don't need to worry about. If the user doesn't need to make the decision, don't make them stare at the decision. One thing I've told clients for years is that every user, from administrators to technicians, wants an economy of clicks. They want to get the most value from the fewest actions, and honestly, who can blame them? If a field isn't helping the user make a decision, if it isn't helping the organization make a decision, it probably doesn't belong on the form. Hiding unnecessary fields makes forms cleaner. It makes training easier. It makes data entry faster, and it helps users focus on the information that actually matters, because every unnecessary click costs time, and every unnecessary field makes the system feel just a little more complicated than it needs to be. So keep your code lists clean, keep them purposeful, and remember that every code you create is another decision you're asking someone to make. Make sure it's a decision worth making. So now that we've talked about what codes are, and we've talked about how many you actually need, let's talk about reporting. Because this is where a lot of organizations accidentally create problems for themselves. And the mistake is simple. They report on the descriptions instead of the codes. Now, I understand why. Descriptions are friendly, they make sense, they look good on a dashboard, they're written for people, but that's exactly the problem. Descriptions are for the people. Codes are for the systems. And those are two very different jobs. So let's go back to our electrical example. Maybe the code is ELE and the description is electrical. Next year, someone decides that electrical systems sounds better. Fine. Update the description, leave the code alone. The users get a clearer description. The reports keep working. Everybody wins. But if your reports are filtering on the description instead of the code, now you've got problems. Some reports say electrical, some say electrical systems. Some dashboards show one of them, Some dashboards show the other. And now everybody's sitting in a meeting trying to figure out why the numbers don't match. And I've sat in that meeting more than once. These are the same piece. The color might change. The label on the storage bin may change. But underneath, it's still the same piece. That's how the code should work. The description is what people see. The code is what the system. And when you're building reports, dashboards, KPIs, integrations, or automations, trust the code, display the description, but trust the code. Remember our dirty data episode here? We talked about how dirty data gets into a system. Sometimes the data isn't actually bad. Sometimes the reporting is. But somebody built a report around a description instead of a code behind it, and that's a subtle difference until it isn't. So here's a rule. Users should see the descriptions, reports should see the codes because descriptions help people understand information. But codes help the systems stay consistent. And consistency is what turns data into decisions. So here's what I'd like from you this week. Find a dropdown that causes the most complaints in your CMMS. Not the one you think is the problem, the one people actually complain about. Maybe it's the work order status code. Maybe it's the asset type code. Maybe it's a priority. Maybe it's the facility field that only has one option in it. And I'd love to hear about it. Tell me in the comments which dropdown causes the most frustration in your system. And then tell me who's complaining about it. Is it administrators, technicians, requesters, everybody? Because complaints are often clues. It tells you where the friction is. And friction is usually where you'll find the biggest opportunities for improvement. Then let's take a look at the code behind it. How many options are there? How many are actually being used? Are there codes that mean multiple things? Are there codes that nobody understands anymore? Are there codes that probably should have been retired years ago? You may discover one small code table is creating a whole lot more frustration than you realize. And if you dig into it and realize that you've inherited a mess and you're well over your head, don't panic. Most CMMS problems weren't created overnight, and they don't get fixed overnight. But they can be fixed. And if you really need help figuring it out, I'm here for you. Hit me up in my email. It's in the description below. I'd be happy to take a look. Next time, we're going to be talking about CMMS security. And no, I'm not talking about hackers. I'm not talking about passwords. And I'm definitely not talking about somebody in a hoodie sitting in a dark room. I'm talking about permissions, roles, access, and one of the biggest mistakes I see in CMMS systems, giving everybody access to everything. Because sometimes bad data isn't caused by users. Sometimes it's caused by giving the wrong people the wrong buttons. And sometimes it's caused by giving the right people not enough buttons. We'll talk about how to build security that protects your data without making your users miserable. Because just like codes, security should support the work, not get in the way of it. I'll see you in the next one. If you found this helpful, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. It helps the channel and it helps more maintenance and facilities professionals find these conversations. And if today's episode made you realize you've got a few too many dropdowns, check out this video here. It's my episode on defaults, because a lot of the code problems start when we ask users questions they never needed to answer in the first place. And remember, I'm Matthew. I'm the sassy guy, where every work order tells a story, even in a galaxy far, far away.